you might want to wait a second for anybody else to join.
You better join.
Give me a
They had better come and see us. Oh.
1, 2.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the Memories of the Con podcast, videocast, whatever you would like to call it. I'm joined this evening by Chris and Becky from MegaCon. How are you guys doing?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Great.
Fine. I hope you're having a celebratory glass of something to mark the end of the convention. And you're busy all week. Yep, there we go.
You know it. I've not stopped drinking all weekend.
Well, that's impressive. And we're joined, of course, by Jim. How are you doing, Jim?
Yeah, doing well, thank you.
Do you have a glass of something as well, or is it just Becky drinking for all of us?
Tea.
That will do the job. Will do the job. Okay, so we're just going to have a bit of a general chat about what the three of these guys have enjoyed most about MegaCon, but we'd love to hear your questions. So if you'd like to send them across in the Q&A section or in the chat, and then once I'm done going through the list with these guys, we'll start putting your questions to them. Ideally, the more you can make them squirm, the better, in my opinion, because I'm asking them and not answering them. So before we started, I asked the guys to come up with a list of a few things, listing their top 3 moments from the con. And because I promised him I wouldn't start with them, we're going to start with Chris. Chris, what was your number one moment?
I've got 2 in total. I think seeing the crazy plays that are happening in Aftermath, I sort of I dropped in on the, because I had access to the Discord server last night, so I just dropped in and had a watch of things that were going on, and there's quite a bit, obviously. I think Gold Command and Silver Command were kind of falling apart quite a bit by those things, and the survivors were running around causing havoc, as you'd expect. So I do enjoy that game. So yeah, well done everyone. I think you had a great time, by the sounds of it. So.
Nice. Well, I'll do a round robin so you can come up with a third one.
Thanks. I'm struggling here. Yeah.
Becky, what was your first one? Your first happy memory?
So my first happy memory was honestly right at the start of the con. It was the launching podcast. It was just me and Chris. We just had a great little chat. And it just for me kicked off the con on a really high note. It was really great. We had a lot of chat with the people who were watching, and it was just great start to the con, and I think it really just set the tone for the entire weekend, which has been really, really great conversation, great ideas being shared, a lot of laughs, a lot of banter. But yeah, it's been good.
Fantastic. That all sounds very wholesome and lovely. Jim, do you have a favorite moment for us?
Yeah, I think so. I think I would go for actually Tim's session. Because I'm, really into the constructive use of pain, crisis, and failure, and how complete abject misery can really be a formative experience. So that was a massive high point for me. I love all of that. And slightly more seriously, it's that part of the Megagame experience for those of us that are designers that's often just not talked about, except in maybe a small group of people in their cups. And so, really nice to see something like that in a con, a bit of that understanding of the, in a general way, the kind of psychology and the emotional content of game design. So I really like that. It was very good.
Fantastic. And of course, if you missed any of the talks and the seminars, they will be going up, and I assume some sort of announcement will be made once those are available. So watch this space. Okay, then Chris, what's your second one?
Okay. Alan Zhang's talk from yesterday evening, our time, was excellent. I thought he talked about running Watch the Skies, so Jim's game, across a week for his students, and sort of he's done it twice, and the first time obviously he learned a lot, and then one of his students, Forrest, has been basically building a Discord bot to enable it to go much more smoothly, and so I think Alan said it was night and day between the first run and the second run of how much admin he had to do to get things to work. The students overwhelmingly really enjoyed it. So yeah, it was a really good talk. I enjoyed the university talks last year, so having Alan along this time was really good. Really enjoyed that.
Fantastic. Becky, I'm guessing from your reaction that was also your number 2.
It wasn't actually. It is something I have noted down to mention. But no, my number 2 is actually following on with the theme of my number 1, was the second event that I attended on the MegaCon Friday. which was the Megagame Museum with Patrick Rose, and then there was also Alex Beck and Dylan Burke on the panel. And I'm expecting us to go and build that museum now, to be honest. Like, I think we talked about some fantastic moments in Megagaming. We talked about a lot of the things that really, you know, if you were to sort of say to people, these are the highlights, these are the notable moments. We talked about a lot of those. We also missed out a lot of those because there are so many great things in Megagaming. But I very much, Paddy, would like you to make this museum for me, please.
Have you been hit with things you forgot to mention during the actual talk that you've been realizing throughout the weekend?
That probably not so much. I did do my sort of prep for it. I'm really pleased with sort of like the other suggestions that the rest of the panel brought. And yeah, I just think there's just so many things out there, and hopefully MegaCon will get a place in that museum as well. Yeah. As the second online Megagaming convention.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Jim, do you have another one for us?
Yeah, I think. Well, it's not one thing. I think it's just in general. I mean, I obviously experienced it in the sessions I was involved in, but I think the discussion and the commentary and the thinking that's going on, I really enjoyed that kind of cross-fertilization stuff. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say everything, but it's
why not?
kind of, you know, it's kind of it, but that particularly, it's the opportunity for mega game designers, players, supporters, whatever. You know, I really got a lot from that. I mean, I really like to just be in the listening and kind of be in that. So and there's, you know, there's chats down the pub and all of that. And I think that's the point of a con, isn't it? Really, it's that interaction discussion. So that's my number two. Well, I don't really rank them, but that's certainly one of my high points.
Fantastic. Okay, Chris, have you thought of a third yet?
Yeah, I'm going to go wholesome on you. So just bringing people together generally. Obviously across the Mega Games, exactly. Across Mega Games, loads of people have loads of fun, and it's good that, you know, we can as a community, because obviously for the last couple of years it's been very difficult, if not impossible, to run games. Running a game in a pandemic is a very bad idea. But even now, like late last year, we got Omicron, and so lots of games were cancelled again as we came into winter. It's just nice to be able to come together as a community and celebrate that. And see some people having fun, and hopefully we can, in addition to digital, we can do what we can do in person again this year. So yeah, no, it's probably that, I would say.
Fantastic. Becky, you have a third?
Yeah, I'm not going to be soppy. I'm going to talk about the fact that I managed to play a game at MegaCon, and not only that, win a game at MegaCon, because my final activity on the first night of MegaCon was playing in Blood on the Clock Tower, which continues to be fantastic. And the good team won. We won the mayor victory, if anyone knows.
Very good.
Knows Blood on the Clock Tower. It means that everyone dies. No, there are 3 people left alive. The mayor is one of them, and on that day, no one gets executed. Whatever the word is.
Okay.
So yeah, it was tense. I did get accused of being the demon. Everyone thought I was the demon. Everyone was so convinced I was the demon. It was because one of my best friends in the game was the demon. That was a bit rough. Yeah,
you got to choose your friends, Becky.
I didn't help myself. Also, a drunk thought I was the demon. Like, oh, drama. It was a really, really great game. And if you haven't played Blood on the Clock Tower, I definitely recommend giving it a go. So yeah, no. And the other thing that I really enjoyed about it was getting to chat with some of the other players, many of whom I heard their voices when I was dropping into the Megagame servers over the weekend, and sort of like being like, oh yeah, that was that person. They're really cool. Like getting to know, because when you're running these sorts of cons, a lot of time you don't really get that sort of like one-on-one time with some of the players and stuff. So it was really nice to sort of like have that first evening where there were a dozen of us playing the game together and sort of properly getting to know some of them. It was really cool.
Yeah. And nothing lets you get to know someone like gathering around the village circle and choosing who you're going to execute every evening.
Exactly. It's
real
the
team
best
bonding
way.
experience, and real friendships are made along the way. Jim, now that you've said everything, do you have anything for a third, or have you?
Yeah, I think, having just kind of come out of it, what I was really pleasantly surprised at was the engagement at the Nijmegen Assault game, which was, it's an unusual, in the current kind of modern megagaming world, kind of hardcore operational megagames aren't that common and are quite unfamiliar. And so I at the outset, I kind of thought, well, I won't be surprised if half the players turn up and go, oh, this is all a bit dry or a bit boring, or not really into this, and leave. Because it's a free country, they can walk. Turned out only a couple of people found that, and everyone else seems to have got fully engaged. So it's really nice when you kind of perhaps your pessimistic expectations are dashed. And that was nice, and it's part of that sort of game is part of the history of Megagames, and I think it's still got some legs for those that have got particular weird interests, but broad church, etc. So I'm very pleased. That was a pleasant surprise for me, and so I've gone away from that happy.
Fantastic. Well, as well as sending out requests for questions from the MegaCon attendees, we also put out a request asking for their favourite moments. And in fact, your game appeared twice, Jim. So we got one from Vish saying that their highlight was playing in your game and it was wonderful and recommended to everyone. And Jacob apparently enjoyed when the Luftwaffe bombers very helpfully supported our assault. The 82nd Airborne is grateful for their help. So
yeah, that was one of those Megagame moments where the Germans got their map reference wrong and their own troops just as they were being attacked by the Americans. And so that was, and it turns out that the German players were told that they bombed their own side, and the troops that were bombed said, well, we won't tell anybody, we'll pretend it was the Americans that bombed us because we don't want to demoralize everyone until their high command that it had gone wrong. So that until they found out afterwards. But it was well, that's Megagames, isn't it? Stuff goes wrong and stuff happens.
Yeah. Did the Germans manage to hold off the Americans and British, or did the British take the Allies take the bridges?
They didn't quite get to the bridge, but they were on the way, which is about historical result. But the 82nd Airborne got a lot of their landing zones overrun by German tanks. So that was a slight embarrassment. But cut and thrust, all of that.
Yeah.
These things happen.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well as asking our panelists for their favorite moments, I also asked them for some moments that surprised them from the weekend. And because I'm always fair, Chris, will come to you first. So what's your first one?
So Harrison sent this question through about 8 hours ago, and I completely ignored the questions. And so I found out about them 5 minutes ago, 5 minutes before this started. I don't really have it. I've got one. I'm surprised it went so well. We organised it obviously last year, and we used the same sort of format this year. But no, we sort of took lessons learned from last year. We spaced out the panels and seminars a little bit, so people could go to the toilet, get a cup of tea, have a chat in the pub, that sort of stuff before we start the next one. No, I think surprised it went so well. It was that's probably my only one, by the way, because I don't have any more.
Well, you better start thinking, because this is a round robin. Fair warning. So if you guys could just quickly go through yours, we can make Chris squirm even more. So
sounds good.
Becky, do you have a moment that surprised you?
So well, this was one that actually, this was where Chris stole my idea from, because it was Alan Sang's talk, and how good you can make Discord bots look. Like, I've seen some very good Discord bots, but those ones just seemed like they didn't look like Discord bots. They looked like an interface, like the things people are building on websites. And if anyone, I appreciate it was for the UK a bit later on the Saturday night, and obviously all the Aftermath players were playing Aftermath, but yeah, I would definitely recommend going and having a watch of that when we do get the videos up, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We will send we'll post about it on the MegaCon server, and we'll send an email rounds as well to let people know when the videos are up. But yeah, would definitely recommend that. And actually connected to that, because I have 2 additional points. John Keyworth's talk today as well was full of so many resources, like so many places you can go and get ideas for mechanisms. So yeah, just how informative some of the talks were, I'd say, is the thing that surprised me. Like, not that it should have surprised me, because we've got some very, very, very clever, talented, imaginative, knowledgeable people in this community, but just how much information they shared.
Fantastic. Okay. Jim, any from you?
Well, no, I was not surprised by anything. It was all exactly as brilliant as I expected it to be. Nothing went wrong. That was not a surprise. The sessions are all great. That was not a surprise. So it's really hard to be surprised. And when I kind of know you guys, and I'm pretty confident that it was going to be great. So yeah, surprise. I guess in terms of the content, again, it's not a surprise, but I think there's a real appreciation of the way you've drawn together these different, you've got these people in the con who are bringing all this expertise to bear, who are really kind of spreading it around. And I think that's, it's not answering your question, sorry, but
don't worry.
It's not a surprise, but it's a real pleasure. It's like a real bonus kind of plus to the whole thing and I think that's really, for me, that's really important, that you've got those different perspectives from different places. You've spread it out, and I think that so not a surprise, but I really maybe it's my fourth good thing. Sorry.
Don't worry, formats are there to be broken, and I'm sure Chris appreciates the extra time he's had to think. So in all that time, he's thought of a fantastic second one, haven't you, Chris?
Yeah, the surprise is I haven't thought of one in the last 2 minutes, so let's move on to Becky quickly.
That's not a surprise. I'm not surprised.
That's me.
For the record, I started thinking of these at 25 to 9, so I had like 20 minutes more than you.
I spent my 5 minutes on the good things, left the surprises completely. So I had one surprise. That's it.
Okay,
fine. Becky, save this section, please.
Okay. Well, seeing as Jim is not surprised and Chris is unsurprisingly
not surprised, unsurprisingly unprepared.
I'll just do my last two, shall I?
Go for it.
The Marshal. No, wait. I've just written down the word Marshal. So Tim played the Marshal in Generalissimo is Dead this afternoon. And for people that have gamed with Tim in the past, you might notice that he is quite loud. So there's not really a place in the house I can put him where I can't hear everything that's going on. So I was obviously eavesdropping on him the entire game, and I knew exactly how he was playing the game. And then I was popping into the Discord server just to hear how the game was going, and they kept stumbling across people who were saying, "Oh, the Marshal, he's been lying to us this entire game." And another thing I know about Tim is that he doesn't lie. He doesn't lie at Megagames. Like, if he can at all avoid it, he doesn't lie. And I know that misinformation and distrust and things like that spreads at Megagames, especially in games like Generalissimo is Dead, where the entire point of it is the distrust and the suspicion. But just like being able to observe it and how much it was spreading just from like a couple of players who decided that Tim must come down because he was too powerful and things like that. It wasn't so much a surprise because I knew it happened. I just never really got to witness it quite so clearly before, but like, because you don't tend to be an observer at Megagames very often. So
no.
Yes, watching how those Chinese whispers can develop is always a delight.
Eugenian whispers, I think, in this case.
Well,
and then
another one.
Yeah, and then my final one was the fact that Holly joined us from France. I had scheduled in Holly's talk and about being a first-time game designer, which took place earlier this afternoon. And she had told me at the time that she was going to be on holiday. And then she joined the chat, and there was just this lovely view of the French Alps behind her and some lovely little chalets and stuff, which I completely forgotten about. So, people, MegaCon bringing people together no matter where they are in the world, even if they're on holiday and normally in the UK. So
fantastic. Okay, then. So please do, if you've got any questions for our panelists, send them across into the Q&A section or chuck them into the chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to keep making them squirm as I try and extract some information out of Chris.
I'm just going to jump in before you do that. I
goodness.
didn't catch Holly's talk, Becky, but how did you experience being a first-time designer?
Well, you have to wait until the recording, aren't you, Christopher?
Oh, give us a sneak peek.
no, it was a really, really, really good talk. Fantastic visuals as well, can I just say? And she just explained so clearly everything that I remember so vividly from the first time. And to be honest, not even just the first time, but like multiple times when I've designed games in the past. And one of the things that really stood out for me, and Chris, you will get to experience it later this year.
I don't want to.
No, it's one of the nice
it's a good one.
bits.
Okay, good.
It's the nice bit. It's the bit where halfway through your first game, you suddenly realize you're running a mega game. And until that point, you're like, you don't really realize it. And then you'll hear someone say something about something that you like, that just this really, really minor thing that you put into the game. And suddenly it has this life of its own. And you're like, holy shit, I'm running a mega game. This is how these things happen. It's not that the designer sat down and carefully planned that this random frog card that she put in the game would turn into someone's best friend and there would be this whole plot going on around it. It's just the players, she put in a frog and just the players turned it into something. And yeah, you've got that to experience later this year.
I can't wait for that.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we have a combination comment and question from Jacob in the chat saying, Jacob said that he really liked how friendly everyone was all weekend and felt very welcome. So well done to all the various organisers for that. And the question, do you have any ideas for next year's talks? So I'd like to make a slight modification to that question, if I may. If we suddenly said to you, are you ready for your talk in 20 minutes, which you've completely forgotten about, what are you doing your talk on that you can just whip out of the bag? And I will be fair and I'll come to Becky first for this one.
Oh, I thought you were just straight up going to go to Chris first.
Yeah, I thought you were too as well.
Okay, you're fine. Okay, Chris.
Chris,
what would you...
Give me a moment. Oh, I've got one. Okay, go on.
Okay, go on.
You want me to go?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. This is
it will probably be my first experience of running a mega game, and hopefully it'll be a 200-player mega game that we're going to run later this year in the UK, called First Contact. Very much inspired by Jim's Watch the Skies, and in fact Jim's running a 300-player mega games back in the day when Shut It Down did their video. So yes, it'll be my experience, I suspect, and hopefully it's a good one. It's been 2 years. Well, it'll be 2 years by the time we actually run the game of development. We meet very regularly and we talk about a lot of stuff, and we've done quite a lot. So hopefully it goes well. So yeah, hopefully I'll have a good story to tell. And if not, there'll be a story. So
you'll have a story to tell either way.
Yes, I might be weeping when I'm saying it, but I will have a story.
Fantastic. Okay, Becky.
So there was one talk that I think came up, which I definitely couldn't do as a talk, but I could do as a panel, which came up during Holly's talk actually, which was about finding a venue for your game and what you look for in the mega game venue. I think a lot of people really struggle with that, and it's like just a logistical question that everyone who runs a mega game in person has to deal with. And I've struggled every single time, and I've ended up paying massively over the odds, to be honest. So this is why I wouldn't be able to do a talk on it. But it would be really good to hear from some people that have found good venues, how they went about that. So that would be really good. Or just, just a more detailed talk about the logistics side, panel about the logistics side of putting together a mega game. So the venue might not be able to be an entire thing, but about choosing a date, about like the things you need to take with you practically on the day. Like I work in events and I studied events, and I remember early on in that we literally had a class which was about your events box, and in this events box you have scissors, sellotape, you have blue tack, you have bits of paper, bits of tape that you can use to make barriers if you need to. You have blank paper that you can use to make signs. You've got spare tights for if they rip on the day. You've got all sorts of random stuff in your events box. And I've had one of those at Mega Games. I've had my Mega Game box of everything that I could possibly need. And I think that's another thing that we don't really talk about much in the run up to people running their first game, is the practicalities, like what you need to remember to take with you, and then all the other stuff around the venue and picking things, and the logistical side.
Nice, very cool. Jim?
I have to say there's a really good session there in what's in your Megagame box. Like people should turn up with a list of what's in their game kit, because I think that would be very revealing of itself.
Yes.
I mean, I never go out without my spare tights, I have to say.
I'm sure.
Well, on weekends anyway. So I've got 4 suggestions.
Ah, fantastic.
Ooh.
One is not mine, not for me. It's for Alex Beck. I want him to finish his history of Megagames, which he did last time. I think it was last time, wasn't it? Or one of them recently. And he said there was more to do and he was going to do more. And where are you, Alex? So that's not me, but you know, I enjoy giving people work to do. So one is a sort of game, possibly a game idea. It could be a panel, it could be a discussion, don't know. Is a game called Megagame, which would be a meta Megagame about running Megagames.
I would play in that.
Actually could be quite entertaining. So, and I kind of had the idea a little while ago, but it's the sort of thing that might fit in with this audience. And you know, and actually, anyway, I've only thought that up the last few seconds. So the other 2 kind of maybe more like sessions. One is about advanced made-upology, or put another way, Megagame adjudication. So, you know, because as Becky said, stuff happens, stuff that's not in the rules, stuff that we never anticipated, and we have to make stuff up as we go along. And that takes a bit of practice. Some people excel at it, some people struggle with it, some people, you know, there's actually there's a semi-serious part to advanced made-upology about how do those people who've done it, how do they approach it? Maybe some, I don't know, best practice or something like that. But that's one idea for a session next time is, and that could be an interesting panel. You know, how have you approached this stuff? What are the, you know, how does it work for you? That was one. So advanced made-upology. And the other one, which I really want to do, is how not to run a mega game. So, effectively, I thought I could do my greatest fails, which I think I've got tons of them. So I just talk about like my really disastrous mega games, because I think it's important. It follows on and away from Tim's stuff. You know, that there's an expectation that you rock up and you say, I'm doing this mega game. You know, hey, come to my game, pay me some money to, you know, not make a profit, but pay me some money. And you're on the spot. And what we don't always acknowledge is that sometimes it goes wrong. Sometimes it doesn't work. And what do you do? You know, do you just go and slit your wrist somewhere? Or do you leave the Megagame community altogether because you're just too embarrassed? Or do you accept that there's actually a normality about that, particularly with first Megagames? Now, you know, there's tons of support around, fantastic groups like this, but there's always that risk, you know, and you know, so my experience has been, I didn't have a support group. I just tried out sometimes quite often disastrous things in order to learn. And so I think there's a how not to run a mega game might be quite interesting. Don't know.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
I love that idea.
Yeah.
We're booking you in for this for next year. You know, just now. So I can see Peter said, someone write that down. We're recording it. It's fine. We've got him on tape saying he'll do it. I have thought of a couple more talks actually while Jim was talking.
Go for it.
Famously ripped off from other people who mentioned them at other points during the con actually, but I just wanted to again get them down in thing. So one of the things that Dave Boundy brought up in my panel yesterday was we're talking about increasing diversity and inclusion in mega games, and he mentioned that there's not really been any talks or anything like that done about race, increasing racial diversity within mega games, and it is, well, we're all white in this chat, you know, and it was something that we were hoping to bring to MegaCon 2022. And we weren't able to because we couldn't find people who would be able to talk on it. So if you or anyone you know would be interested in being on a panel on that, either now or between now and next MegaCon would really like to host that. Just putting that out there if anyone does watch this. And the other one, just on a slightly more lighthearted note, is Paddy suggested that following mine and Chris's talk about marketing, that I could do a session where I tear other people's Megagame marketing to shreds. On a volunteer basis, so you would bring it along, and I would tell you how I would improve it and things like that, because I work in marketing, and I think a lot of people don't work in marketing, and I do have this knowledge. So if I can say anything in that talk that helps people work out a bit of the what not to do and things like that to help them improve how they market it, then I'd be happy to do that as a public service where I get to tell people they're rubbish at things.
Roast my marketing.
That could really end well, Becky. That's
I can only see that going well.
Can't see a downside to that at all.
Volunteer basis, so I would only be telling it to people who had accepted really that I might tell them.
Tested. I mean, I wonder also that because there is a certain amount of dark art in marketing, isn't there? And I wonder if there's a way you could do a demonstrator. I don't know if it's even possible, but it occurs to me it's like, because we talk about often there's the top 10 tips kind of thing, and I think you've done stuff on your blog, haven't you, about marketing? Yeah,
bits.
And I'm wondering if there's something about that, about maybe the other side of what I've suggested, when marketing's gone horribly wrong, or when examples of where somebody's put a huge amount of effort in the wrong direction, and that maybe that doesn't put people on the spot so much. I mean, because I suspect that you've got to step up and be roasted by Becky, it's a niche audience, I suspect. That sounds really interesting, because we get that feedback, don't we? That lots of people are saying, well, how do I get people to come to my game? I've got a game, I want to do a thing, there's nobody near me. There usually is, but how do I get to them? How do I approach them? I think that's a really good session.
A lot of the time people are just making very, very simple mistakes, picking the wrong day, picking the wrong name, not explaining things clearly, just making basic, and hopefully mine and Chris's talk will help some people realize that sort of thing. But I'm conscious of the fact that one thing we didn't have tons of in that talk was examples, because it is hard to say this is a good example, this is a bad example. You can say this is a good example, but you need those bad examples to really say, and I don't want to pick on people who haven't signed up for it to say. I pick on myself. I said during the talk that Everybody Dies was a bad name, but I'm not willing to pick on other people.
I mean, there's we ran a Megagame in the 1990s called Springtime for Hitler. That was a reference to a specific movie, and so on. But I wouldn't use that name now. No. And there's a time for everything. There's an appropriateness, and you wouldn't market back then. We didn't have the internet. So it was word of mouth, etc. Now anything you say is out there forever.
Yep.
So you can really shoot yourself in the foot. And so I think it's a really good idea to have that. I mean, examples of good practice, they've got to be good, haven't they? It's got to be a good thing. Yeah. And we need to pick your expert brains without extracting them.
And on that note, I just want to say that, we're talking about these for next year's con, but I think, Chris, we're going to carry on doing the minis in between. We've not had a formal chat about it.
But I think the minis, I would kind of argue with the minis, definitely. I think the minis do well on Sunday evening.
Yeah, so if anyone is hearing any of these talks or has any ideas of talks, I'm sure we'll be putting a call out for MegaCon minis within the next few weeks. So yeah, if you're like, oh shoot, I missed getting to do a talk at MegaCon, don't worry, you don't have to wait a full year.
Okay, well, we've got a couple of cues in the Q&A. So we've got two from Vishalji, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. The first one, are you looking for additional people to run new mega games in the future? I'm pretty sure I know the answer to that one. I'm assuming that along the same lines of, if you want to do a talk, get in touch. If you'd like to suggest a mega game, get in touch, I assume is the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the community as a whole is looking for new people. I can't quite tell from your question whether you mean at MegaCon or whether you mean just in general, but yes to both. We had Aftermath this year, which was new to online. It had run before in person, but it was new to online. And then just the community as a whole is looking for people to run new games, online, in person, all of the above. We always need new designers.
definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And if you are thinking about doing that, I'll shill my own work for a brief moment here. Head over to the Megagame Assembly and you'll find a whole bunch of stuff for resources for writing megagames, examples of megagames, and we did a recent series on our podcast about getting in there and getting involved in what's involved in writing your own megagame for the first time. So if that's something you're thinking about, head on over.
And the community in general will help.
Oh,
like
yeah,
if you have questions,
absolutely.
post on Discord, post on Facebook, people will respond.
Yes, indeed. And also from Vishaldi, would you be looking to run more distributed operational war games at future megacons? And I must confess, I'm not entirely sure I know what a distributed operational war game is, but it sounds very impressive.
I think it means things like Megagame Assault.
Okay. Would that be something that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, the way we decide what mega games to run at MegaCon is a lot of the time, what games have we been offered to have run with us? And then normally we say, should we ask Jim if he's up for doing one?
Jim will bound to have one in the library.
Yeah. And with Jim, we do tend to think,
many.
okay, these are the sort of games we've got on for this year. Let's look at Jim's enormous catalogue of options and find something that could fill the gap in terms of type of game that we don't have. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely open to having another one in the future, provided someone's willing to run it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe Jim.
No, never volunteer. That's the rule. Which is not a rule I'm particularly good at following. But usually it is usually a case of, as you say, I mean, tell me what sort of thing you'd like, and I can probably, if I can, I'll find something to fit. And I mean, it also sometimes it can be really helpful for me. I think it's last year I did it effectively a playtest session of a game I had in mind. Was it last year? Yeah, whenever it was. It was, yeah. And as it happens, the playtest demonstrated that it wasn't really the game I wanted to do. But that's, that was another example of where this is actually quite a good forum for that as well, I think, in a way, of actually saying, well, if somebody's not done it before and wants to try something here, I think it would be quite a good audience. As long as you kind of upfront and say, look, I'm experimenting or whatever, that I think that would be a perfect audience for that. So it doesn't have to be, I mean, it's nice to come and do stuff, but you don't necessarily need a grey beard doing something every time. I'd rather, I like doing it, but if you've got a full program of stuff from new people are trying stuff out, I think that's really a far more a far better result, really.
Yeah. Okay, and we've got one from Jacob. What advice would you give me for when I organise my rival MegaCon?
Come along and help us.
Well, for a start, you really need to think about the day you're doing it. I think Wednesday mornings are really, really good. There is a huge gap. No one else is running a MegaCon on a Wednesday morning. Ideally as well during the school holidays when all of the kids are at home. And so any mega gamer who's got kids is going to be able to just shut themselves away in their office, away from all of that noise, and they won't get distracted at all. I think definitely charge way more than we do, because people will pay way more than they're paying us, and that won't be an issue in terms of selling tickets. And definitely call it something really, really, really mysterious and obscure, like LARPCon. No one. Mystery is really great in this sort of marketing.
You say that, Becky. What would you do if he did all of that and it was a roaring success?
I would leave my career. I would go and do something else.
Okay, good. Well, I hope someone wrote all that down. Looking forward to Gen Con, the midweek online £2,000 a ticket convention that I'm sure will be a rip roaring success. Do any of you have any particular nuggets that you heard in any of the seminars that you attended that you think you would like to share with anyone who may have missed them? Putting you guys on the spot a little bit here, so I think we'll go straight to Chris for this one.
I hate you so much. I'm gonna fall back on Alan Zhang, I think. It was really inspiring to hear him talk about the students getting into it across the week, and he said he had such engagement. Now, I think there were a couple of students, maybe each one, that weren't so engaged, but that they really, a lot of them wanted, like a high proportion of them wanted to continue the game even more days. You know, I think he ran it for a week, like a couple of hours each morning, as part of their sort of tutoring, and then they would obviously, I'd imagine, go off and be writing all sorts of messages to each other across the day, and I'd imagine there was lots of sidebar conversations and what have you going on, like we do at normal mega games and in digital mega games. So I think it's just, yeah, so inspiring that obviously, and obviously he's in Canada, so it's not over here in the UK, but it's a great way to get young people involved. And if we're going to try and grow the hobby again after the pandemic sort of ending, hopefully, and we're going to be able to get back to normal life, you need the youngsters, you need the young people to come in and enjoy what we do in order to grow the hobby. So yeah, absolutely. If there's other university lecturers that want to try the same thing over here in the UK, then I thoroughly recommend it. It sounds really good, like you running the game across the week.
Yeah, fantastic. Becky, any particular nuggets you haven't mentioned already that you picked up over the weekend?
Trying to remember those. There has honestly just been so much good stuff, and in every single session. I had a notepad in here, but I took it into the other room because Tim was gaming in here earlier, where I was noting everything down. There's definitely some things that were in John Keyworth's talk where I was like, I was downstairs making lunch at the time, so I couldn't note them down. But I was like, he mentioned a book about halfway through that sounded really interesting. As I said, there's tons of resources in it as well that were really good. Jim's talk as well on facilitating mega games just had a lot of that really, really important information, and sort of my mindset on the role of control has evolved over the years, and I think there was a lot of really good ideas in that talk that sort of like resonated a lot stronger with now how I view the role of control. So I'd definitely say that one as well.
Nice. Jim, any that you picked up you haven't mentioned?
Struggling to pick anything out, really. I mean, again, I would probably come back to Tim's session. I think I would say that the nugget for me was that opportunity to reflect on kind of a personal experience, and I think I really valued that. I really valued the openness and the way he was able to share. It's pretty personal stuff when you've lost it after a game. It's like I've had enough. I can't do this. This is shit. And it's important. It's important for us. It's important. And again, he brought that round to not just, look at me, it was all really sad, but this is a shared experience that many of us experience. And also, what can you as players do? What can we do about it? And that was the real takeaway for me was, there's a as a community, we kind of have or maybe responsibility is too strong a word, but we certainly have something about how we respond to each other and how we act and how we behave. So I think that was really kind of opening up something which is more than one often sees in kind of game-related groups. And I think it's because mega games are primarily social, and primarily about relationship. So I thought bringing that to light was significant. I think it's an important stage in the kind of community development. So I guess that's probably my nugget, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point, because I remember hearing Tim talk about his reaction, having just done Shot Heard Around the Universe, and him talking about him being utterly defeated by it and going home and throwing it all in the bin. And I was just flabbergasted when he told me that, because I think Shot is probably up in my top 3 mega game experiences of all time. So and I, as a player, didn't know how to communicate that to him. And had I known that he'd been sort of having those feelings after the game, I would have gone up to him and told him just how incredible a day I'd had. Because when you're so involved in it, you don't understand that, the feelings that are involved with the designer. So as a player, I would really like to know how to mitigate that.
And the thing which came across strongly is that you, when you're in that space, you're exhausted. You've just had something that you've committed a huge amount of yourself into, and you've gone through it, and there's a tendency which I recognise, to spot all the things went wrong, and all the things weren't quite right, and then you go to the pub afterwards and people point out all the things you knew weren't quite right, and that reinforces it. When somebody comes up and says, "No, it was really great. I loved it," you go, "Yeah, but you don't really know what went wrong. You had the good bit, but you weren't really in the shitty bit." And so it's really hard to receive positives at the end of a session when you're in that frame of mind. And I think, again, Tim suggested very sensibly, is that actually it's okay to take yourself out of that space. And there's also, I mean, I'm in the comments at the time, I mentioned the example where I'd just done a mega game, which I designed, and one of the players came up to in the pub afterwards and started asking about the game, and then proceeded to demolish the entire game in detail, about everything I'd got wrong and everything that didn't work and why I was basically shouldn't have done it. And that's really not how you approach a post game. And the game wasn't broken; he just hadn't won. And so, I mean, by that stage, I'd had enough experience to know there's a difference between this game's crap because I didn't win, and this game's crap because this game's crap. But even so, it hits hard. Yeah. And you have, and the players have the players come out, they've got a buzz, there's all sorts of things going on for them. I mean, I'm not saying you're responsible for the designer's state of mind, but I think it's worthwhile, just as Tim has done, kind of just bringing it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's also a difference. Players having just got out of a game are also fully immersed in it and are feeling stronger feelings than they would if you came back and asked them the same question even a day later. I think you'd probably get a lot less of an extreme response, either positive or negative. I think it's
that's completely the case. And and so I found that, again, that came out in a session is don't read the feedback until sometime afterwards, and look after yourself. That's very, very important. I mean, that said, you can have quite a good experience in the pub afterwards as a designer, but if it's just that kind of trigger, that switch into kind of down moment, and it's good for Tim that he got back on the horse. I mean, I think that's a huge credit, and that's in my case, I tend to get back on the horse because I'm too dumb to stay off. But it's and also I've done it a bit more, and so I do my anxiety at different times. Either know to be anxious afterwards, but we talked about Urban Nightmare Wide Area Megagame, and for quite a while after that, it's like, I'm never doing that again. Never, ever. I'm not touching that. I'm at a stage now where I think, actually, I could probably do it now. I know a bit more about online games. I know a bit more about the communications. Technology's moved on. Who knows?
We'll put you in for later this year then, right?
Urban Nightmare Wide Area Megagame number 2 coming winter 2022. Sounds like a commitment to me.
Solid goal commitment.
We also have another little one from Vishali. How do you express to Control that you enjoyed the game without coming across as insincere or similar? So I suppose, as well as feedback to the game designer, feedback to Control. Any tips on times when that's been handled well, if you've been controlling, or handled badly? I'll throw this one open to everyone so it doesn't look like I'm picking on Chris.
I know you are.
Yeah, Chris.
I don't know. I mean, I think just say it from your heart. Say like you just mentioned, players I've experienced as well. You come out with an emotional high and an emotional low based on your day, and I guess not temper that, but just to understand that you're coming across pretty full on possibly, and if you had a Control player that wasn't great with you for whatever reason, or you weren't great, didn't have a great experience, then maybe don't tell them at the pub. Maybe just put it into the feedback form, and then when you did a bit more dispassionately, remove yourself from the situation a bit and think about how you acted, how about they acted, and if there's a problem, then you can put it in the feedback form for the designer to approach, and maybe come back to you for more information. But not if you've not had a good time, then I would say if it was an emotional something at the pub, and I would not, if you had a bad time, I wouldn't go to the control with that at that time. If you had a good time, then sure, yeah, let them know. It's always nice to be told if you've done a good job, so just go for it.
Yeah, I would just say be specific as well. If you've had a good time, be specific about what it is that's been good. Yeah. You know, it's one thing to say, oh, I had a really fun day, to your control, to the game designer, but that a lot of the time that can be about, oh, I was playing with some really cool people, or oh, I came up with some really cool plots. But as a designer, I love to hear all the cool plots. I really, really love it. I also really like to hear, this specific element of the game gave me something that I could just take and run with. This specific thing that this control player did really made my day. Like, one of my favorite stories about Trope High is every single story I hear about the modern foreign languages building, because that didn't exist in my design. And that was just a case of my control players just winging it and making it awesome for the players and stuff. And those control players that came up with it, or I think it was Seamus that came up with it, you know, that's his stamp on my game. And the fact that his stamp on my game created such a memorable experience for so many players, like, I hope it's something that he sort of like really is really pleased with and really proud of. If it was something that I contributed to someone's game, then it definitely would be. So
yeah, I agree. I think specific, I mean, it's always nice to get positive strokes. That's great. I think that, but if they're non-specific, they're nice, and it's great. You know, had a great time. Thanks. Job done. You know, had a great time. I think you're brilliant, and I want to have your babies. You know, that's not so good. That might be segueing into insincere. So I think there's a you know, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know, but I think that what's most helpful to a game designer, a game runner, as Becky says, is if somebody says, I really like this aspect of the game, or I really felt this engaged me, or I really felt these people engaged me, or I really felt my control understood me, or there was this moment where my wizard wheeze came to fruition because of, you know, whatever it is. But I think that's most helpful, because then we get feedback. And the flip side of that, it seems to me that it's the same about critique, that critiques can be positive if they're specific. Mm-hmm. You know, okay, I think this game is crap. Okay, I get that. What didn't you like? Well, control were horrible to me. Okay, you know, what was that about? You know, they didn't let me do what I wanted to do. All right, we get that, and so on. So you can drill down into it. You find out whether you find out something. So again, people giving feedback like that, it's to encourage them to be specific. The other thing I try really hard on, it's not always easy, is when you're on the receiving end, is not to become defensive. Again, you've put, and that's the worst time. Again, your game's just ended. You're in a state of mental and emotional exhaustion. Somebody cares, yeah, but that was rubbish, you know, or that the game should have had that, and you go, no, it's fine. And that's hard. That's hard when you're tired. It's hard when you're not tired. Yeah. But that's also useful for encouraging. You want to encourage positive critiques of stuff, don't we? Because we're trying to develop.
Yeah. I think I like your idea of specifics, and just turns it from possibly meaningless feedback to actually actionable feedback or meaningful feedback. So yeah,
because on the positive side, you know, basic strategy, reinforce success. If you want to know what worked well as well, you want to know, so you know that it's worth doing it again.
Yeah. And there might be the thought as the player of, well, this part of the game worked really well, but I'm sure the designer knows that, so there's no need to mention it. But maybe make it plain and clear, slap him in the face with it. Okay, well, I think that's we've run to the end of our questions, unless anyone's got a very quick last minute one to throw in there. But I think that might be the end of that, unless anyone's got anything further to say. Chris, do you have a closing monologue for us?
No, I'm good. I've really enjoyed it again. Obviously a little bit different to last year when we were all in lockdown, but no, I'm glad that we've been able to bring such an enjoyable weekend to a lot of folks. It's been very good. Yeah.
Fantastic. Becky, anything last from you?
I'd just like to say a couple of thank yous, if that's okay, seeing as I think we've still got a couple more minutes.
Go for it.
So huge thank you to our game designers who were running games this weekend, to Dan, Kieran, Jim, and Ben, who's currently running Councils of Elporia. MegaCon would be half the experience if we didn't have fantastic mega games at them. So thanks to all of you, and to all of the control teams that volunteered on those that those games wouldn't be taking place without. Big thanks to everyone who came and spoke or appeared on a panel. We've spent most of this hour talking about how many amazing things we learned from those, and that it doesn't end at the con. We'll be putting them on YouTube, so loads more people in the future will be learning from them as well. And a big thank you to the rest of the I feel like I'm forgetting a group of people. Big thank you to the rest of the organising committee. So Chris and Ed and Matt, who couldn't join us because he's ill. And to all of the attendees, that's who I was forgetting. And to everyone who came along to MegaCon. And again, without people coming along, spending a $5 on a ticket and coming along and playing in our games and asking questions in our seminars, then thanks for supporting us.
Fantastic. Jim, any last comments?
I think my last thing is I really want to work out how I can book onto Jacob's Wednesday Mystery Con. I'm really looking forward to it, so I'm hoping to get it paid very soon.
Well, you're in luck actually, because we're running an early bird special. You can get the tickets for only £1,000 if you book them this evening. Just send me an email and I'll send you the PayPal link, and we'll hook you up on that. Yeah, it's a very very lucrative early bird special. That's for supporting at the beginning. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening, everybody, and thank you for attending MegaCon. As Becky said, please keep an eye on the Discord and the Facebook groups for announcements for future exciting events, and for when the talks go online, please do go and watch any that you may have missed. It sounds like there was an awful lot of nuggets of inspiration and intelligence and wisdom sprinkled throughout them, so go and give them a check. So yeah, thank you very much, and good night or good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.